Welcome to NTD's special live coverage of the 2024 World Falun Dafa Day Parade right here in New York City.
They're celebrating the freedom of belief and the universal values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. We'll be covering all of it here on NTD, starting right now.
Thank you for joining us for this exciting day. We are just moments away from this momentous occasion. This parade is celebrated right here in New York City and around the world every year. It's a beautiful occasion.
Yeah, on that note, I'm always blown away by the sheer number of people who show up every year. It's hundreds or even thousands, and just the bright colors that they wear and the energy they bring is just really uplifting.
Let's take a look at the parade route. The parade starts at Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza on 47th Street and 2nd Avenue, which is near the UN headquarters. Then it heads to 42nd Street, and from there it passes Grand Central Terminal, Bryant Park, Times Square, and the Port Authority Terminal, and then proceeds to the Chinese Consulate on 12th Avenue. The helicopter flew above the East River as well as New York landmarks, including the Statue of Liberty.
And against a clear blue sky, the captivating banner reads, "Falun Dafa is good" in both Chinese and English.
This is from practitioners of this meditation discipline, hoping to celebrate the anniversary of Falun Dafa and to spread the message of their peaceful practice to the world. And also this week, some of you in New York may have caught sight of this helicopter here. I don't know, did any of you see that?
I did see it, actually.
You
on
saw
my
it,
way home.
amazing.
Yes,
what a sight
great.
that must have been.
Yeah.
It really is, given that it did have those bright colors and very eye-catching, and that it had text in both Chinese and English. I think just that alone would stand out.
Exactly, yes.
You can see the parade here already beginning, some gorgeous banners.
Steph, that's actually what we're seeing is a formation called the taiko drum. Now, it looks similar to a Chinese drum called the Tang Dynasty drum. You see that the beer keg shake actually provides a lot of great sound.
This is the 2024 World Falun Dafa Parade here in New York City.
Now, I want to just add one point about Falun Dafa. When it started to spread in China back in the 90s, one of the key aspects of it was that it was really at a moment where China was in a void of needing to fulfill its sort of spiritual and moral values. And when the Falun Dafa's core characteristics, truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, came out as the message, that's really resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah, this is such a good point, and that really speaks to the energy that you can see of, such bright colors, the blue, this bright yellow, and of course we have here the Tianguo marching band. So Tianguo, it means celestial in Chinese.
David, is that right? Is it a good translation?
Yeah, there's also another one I like to say. It's called heavenly, which, the idea here is to demonstrate, I think, a core of Chinese culture, which is the associations to divinely inspired culture of its past and its history. And a lot of the Chinese heritage are actually founded on that idea. And so you'll see throughout this entire parade a lot of messages associating with those traditional values of faith and of beliefs and morals.
And I think we actually can listen in a bit, so let's hear what the band sounds like right now.
That was a beautiful sound. They march in step with each other so tightly. They're really cooperating, you can see, and they just feel like one piece, don't they? With the sound, but also the visuals, and it really reminds me that marching bands have this connection, deep kind of connection with military bands, which in themselves have a rich history, and their roots trace back even to ancient times. So it's like these musical ensembles have have evolved into sophisticated units. But what have we got here? Oh, another new banner. That's a lot of Chinese. David, what can you tell us about what we're seeing on screen?
Yes, Steph. So today is also the founder of Falun Gong's birthday. So all these practitioners here, it seems like they're wanting to celebrate the birthday, but also just to attribute to the personal development that they've gained and benefited from over the years. And so the banner here reads that, teacher, you have worked hard, thank you. And this vertical one here reads World Falun Dafa Day, and this is to congratulate and to wish the founders happy birthday. And we also see this here is in the central core text of Falun Gong called Zhuan Falun. In all sorts of different languages. We see there's, I believe, Vietnamese, there's Russian, there is traditional Chinese, all sorts of different languages that it's been translated.
And that really speaks to just how many people around the world learn it and practice it. 150 countries, I believe.
Right, and to David's point, like we mentioned earlier, right, May 13th this year marks the 32nd anniversary of Falun Dafa being introduced to the public back in 1992, and it is now spreading to over 150 countries, like we mentioned, just speaking to the wide appeal that it does have, right? So all these different ethnicities are all drawn to it. So Falun Dafa, or Falun Gong as it's also called, actually represents a direct connection to genuine traditional Chinese culture that does go back thousands of years. The teachings pull from profound ancient philosophies like Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism that were the bedrock of Chinese civilization for millennia.
Yeah, and we will definitely be getting into this further, especially with David and what you can tell us about the history of this. But we will be tuning in to our reporter Fiona G, who's on the ground there at the parade, speaking with people down there. Fiona, what have you got for us?
Hi, Steph. We are here on the streets of Manhattan, where the parade celebrating World Falun Dafa Day has just kicked off. I'm actually here with a young practitioner of Falun Dafa. She's here to share some of her experiences. Hi, Anna. Could you tell us a little bit about how you were introduced to Falun Dafa?
Yeah, so actually my family was already practicing before I was born. It started with my mom. She used to be like really weak, and she had insomnia and depression. And also she was always looking for like faith and just something to believe in. And then when she started practicing Falun Dafa, her health and just like outlook on life completely changed. And like, for example, when she had my older brother before she started practicing, she had a lot of health issues like before and after, and it was just really hard for her. And when she had me, like a lot later on in life, given her previous medical condition and her age, she would have been like pretty high risk for complications, but it actually went really smoothly. And I've been told that I was also a pretty big baby. So like overall, it's just like a really big shift from before she started practicing.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And so this means that you grew up in a family that practices Falun Dafa. How did that impact your life growing up?
Yeah, I think it gave me just an earlier awareness of like how to be kind and considerate of the people around me. And in addition to that, like I was just a really hearty, healthy kid. Like I very rarely got sick, and even now as well. And I remember when I was a kid, whenever I did get sick, I would always prefer to meditate with my mom because it just always made me feel a lot better. Yeah.
Wow, well, that sounds great. Sounds like you actually chose to meditate instead of eating medicine as a kid. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Anna. Well, Steph, there you have it. That was Anna sharing a little bit about what it was like growing up as a Falun Dafa practitioner. Back to you.
Wow, that's such a beautiful insight into, this practice, which actually many people may not know much about, but there are so many stories out there like that. And from someone so young, experiencing it from such a young age, what a beautiful insight. We have seen in the footage today already some traditional Chinese symbols, from Taoism, from Buddhism. People out there may have recognized them or maybe not, but let's get into some of those symbols. One of them looks a little bit like the swastika, but of course it's been around for
much longer, thousands of years, yes.
And to many people throughout Asia, the meaning of this symbol is really something else entirely than...
Exactly, Steph. And to talk about that, the in China, in Eastern culture, there's really a big emphasis on spiritual development in its history. So even back in the day, scholars, they had to understand and meditate in order to gain this inner peace, tranquility. And so when this Falun Dafa was introduced back in the days, that was during a time when people in China really felt like there was a lack of faith in the society, and there was a lack of outlook for where does things go, especially given the fact that this was just a few years after political movements in China under the communist regime. And so you can see that that's why this movement gained a lot of traction and immediately was resonating with all walks of life, from the farmers in the countryside, city officials, to the police, everywhere else. All sorts of careers, people were coming out doing these practice in the parks, in the morning and night, and going about their days. And so it was a very peaceful period until the persecution started in 1999.
Yeah, you raise a really good point, because in The Slaughter by Ethan Gutman, he recounts kind of the beginning era of Qigong in China, and then how that was the environment where Falun Gong or Falun Dafa appeared in. And then he recounts his own funny story of him trying to yell at his wife to get to this museum because it's snowing outside, it's really cold. But then they pass a park where there's just all of these practitioners doing this standing exercise, just standing in the cold without very many layers of warm clothes. And he just felt so silly just making fun of them. And so that kind of speaks to that perseverance that you were mentioning earlier.
Oh, what a gorgeous boat we're seeing just float by.
Is actually the Divine Land boat that I believe just got introduced this year, as I'm being told. And it has these floating clouds, which you'll see a lot of the emphasis and accents on this sort of floatiness and this heavenliness in Chinese culture. Again, I think this parade, the key here, Steph and Tiff, is to understand that this is not just about traditional Chinese culture. It's actually about a revival of traditional culture across the world. And so that's what I think a core message for, although everyone seems relatively peaceful and walking down this, is that they want to demonstrate that this is not just about them and their story, but it's about spreading what is supposed to be the traditional values that they've held true over the years, and demonstrating that to Americans today. And you see, this is actually one of the exercises that they do. So one of the research that I looked into for Falun Dafa is that why were people ranging from, as we heard with the guest, very young to very old? It was because there was a common understanding that a lot of these transcend age, transcend race, nationality, and so it was something that everybody in China, and now we see around the world, could do, and it was something that they felt like did not need to be restricted. And so values like truth, peace, compassion, love, I think these are all fundamental human values that we can all get behind, and that's what they're demonstrating today.
Yeah, certainly universal values that anyone can get on board with: truthfulness, compassion, forbearance. Who can deny that? But as you saw, we were showing some footage of the exercises, the meditation. Some of it is moving, some of it is seating, as a traditional meditation that people know of. But they're said to lead energy through the body as well. And as people would have known, there's meditation is shown through study after study to improve people's health, mentally, physically, emotionally. So people are really reaping the benefits of that by engaging in this practice.
And Steph, just to highlight something very interesting, is that throughout the parade, you'll see banners in traditional Chinese rather than simplified Chinese. And that's, again, a recall back to that traditional value aspect, because simplified Chinese was actually introduced following the Chinese Communist Party's takeover of China. For a very long time, traditional Chinese, it had its character meanings, which are very much rooted in its history behind each of the characters. And so you see here that they, again, want to bring back the revival of traditional culture. And so some of these banners here says, "World needs truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance." I think that's a great message, as well as, again, some congratulatory messages to the founder of Falun Gong, and Falun Dafa is great. Again, the truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance is the core characteristics of Falun Gong, but I think it honestly is a core principle I think everybody really preach or should live by. That's, here we see the book, again, of Zhuan Falun, which is the core text of the practice.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you're raising, David. So these banners and these characters that we're seeing in Chinese, we wouldn't be able to see those in mainland China.
Yes, not today.
Because that would be in a simplified form. I think that's like, again, a testament to the drawing back to the ancient Chinese culture and tradition and all the wisdom that we can learn there. But if you are just tuning in, this is the 2024 World Falun Dafa Day and NTD Live special coverage. Oh, there we go, some lotus flowers. These ladies are wearing dresses that look like they're lotuses on the bottom. Lotuses actually have a rich history in China, especially the symbolism of growing out of the mud and kind of that remaining and keeping that purity despite the surrounding circumstances. I think it even reflects in Buddhism. Is that true, David?
Yeah, so there's a very big emphasis on purity. And, in Buddhism, from my understanding, is that it's about reaching that level of tranquility and purity. Now, I'm very interested in this whole idea of using the flower, because often, flower, each of them is supposed to mean something different, but no, I don't think anything ever uses lotus as sort of that symbol, except in Chinese culture. So even, throughout all of its history, you see lotus is always the big emphasis because of what it symbolizes, which is purity.
Falun Dafa has won awards and recognition from around the world for helping to improve people's mental and even physical health, kind of like that doctor was talking about. And Mr. Li Hongzhi himself, the founder of Falun Dafa, is a 5-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee. He was nominated by the European Parliament for the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. He is also the recipient of Freedom House's International Religious Freedom Award. And here in the U.S., Mr. Li first accepted a proclamation from the city of Houston, Texas. They declared October 12, 1996, Li Hongzhi Day. The city also named Master Li, that's what the practitioners call him, an honorary citizen and goodwill ambassador. That really fits into what that doctor was just telling us.
And we see here again on the live footage here the symbol of Falun Dafa, which is called the Falun, or the Wheel of Law, as Tiffany, you mentioned. It's the central symbol here as it represents sort of the core teachings of both the encompasses all of that of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance in the symbol. And again, that middle symbol there is not, it's the Buddhist school symbol of Srivatsa. That's what it's called in Buddhism, rather than the swastika as we know more recently as.
And these beautiful flags as well. I mean, these
really eye-catching.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? They're just moving in perfect unison. I just think there's such grace to them.
It's even quite mesmerizing, the way the flags are moving.
And actually, these flags are an integral part of Chinese warfare back in the day, to help rally and inspire the troops. So they have that kind of cultural significance as well.
Yeah, and even here, right, you could almost imagine and picture these legendary Chinese warriors charging into battle. It's really bringing, that kind of past to life here.
Something we kept seeing, but I have to mention, it was the dragon team.
Yes.
The dancing dragon team. And the formation, it's a key part of Chinese culture because the dragon symbolizes that it's part of the association to the emperor, to prestige, to royalty, but it also symbolizes power and this dragon dance, for those of you who don't know, is actually one of the two ways. So in the Chinese Yangtze River, south of the Yangtze, they developed the southern style of dragon dance. In the northern part of it, they developed the northern style. So the one that we saw, I believe, is the southern style, which is much bigger and longer.
That is really fascinating because, dragons are quite important to Chinese culture. Chinese people themselves see themselves as being descended in some ways from this mythical creature. It seems like it has a lot of relevance and symbolicness in this culture.
Exactly, and so in this parade we saw, so now what we're seeing is actually the call for stopping the forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners, which is something that's been happening in China since the early 2000s. Now, as we understand, Tiff, in 2006, there was an independent report by two Canadian human rights lawyers, David Mattis and David Kilgore, that really explored and investigated into this issue, which we'll talk more about. But now you see the lions with another dragon. So the lions and the dragons, they're often used in important ceremonies in China. So whether that's with a wedding or a sort of state affairs, etc., throughout its history, lions are shown as this, it's much smaller than the dragon, but it's closer to that earthly sort of importance as well, because lion itself is also very ferocious, and it charges and leads the way as well.
And actually, for both of those types of dances, they were traditionally done by martial artists. Is that
Exactly, because
right?
it takes a lot of muscle power for you to move around in those costumes with a lot of teamwork.
They're very heavy, actually, especially the head of the dragon and the lion.
I mean, they're looking quite playful, and you often see these in terms of, other cultural celebrations like the Lunar New Year. They have also dancing lions and dragons that you see there in the back, because in China, again, dragons symbolize prosperity, nobility, auspiciousness, solemnity, and sanctity.
For those of you who are just tuning in, this is NTD's live special coverage of the 2024 World Falun Dafa Day Parade right here in New York City. And we have our reporter Arlene Richards on the ground speaking with people down there. Arlene, what have you got for us?
We've got Leo Tim. He's the China news editor at Vision Times. Leo, how was Falun Dafa connected to Chinese culture and this parade?
So in traditional Chinese culture, there's a deep vein of these spiritual traditions and this belief, this overarching belief that man and heaven are one. So what Falun Dafa does is it's a revival of this belief, this idea that through spiritual cultivation, man can really elevate himself to the level of the divine.
We've been talking about the forced organ harvesting that's in China, and just expanding on that, there have been reports of the World Falun Dafa Day parade here in New York City. We're coming to you live from our studio in New York as well. And we do have our reporters out in the field, in the ground, in Manhattan. One of them is Fiona G. Fiona, what do you have for us?
Hi, I'm here with another practitioner of Falun Dafa. His name is Elliot. He's also got some interesting stories to share on how he came to learn about Falun Dafa. Hi, Elliot. Could you tell us a little bit about how you came to learn about Falun Dafa?
Absolutely. So during COVID, right after COVID, I spent a lot of time kind of isolated and alone, and I was reading a lot about spiritual practices, and I really knew deep down inside my heart that I really wanted to find a spiritual practice that could really help me to improve myself. I was going through a tough time in my life, and I spent a lot of time reading all these different books. And what I ended up finding was a YouTube video on some ancient spiritual practice in Greek society. And in the comment section, there was a link, and that link linked to a book. It's called Zhuan Falun. And I opened that book, and it was a very emotional moment for me, because I remember opening that book and reading it, just the opening words, Dafa is the wisdom of the Creator. And just reading that, and just felt like I had found something deep in my heart that I was looking for a long time. And since that day, I've been practicing Falun Dafa, and I feel like my mind and my body have been purified. My whole life, my whole worldview has changed. I feel like a different person.
Wow, yes, you say that you feel like your life has changed. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, before I found the practice, I was anxious. I was kind of isolated. I really felt like I didn't really collaborate with people well. And now, since then, I feel like I'm more confident. I'm more open. I feel like my relationships are a lot better, and I feel like a whole different person.
Yeah, and in terms of relationships with family, with colleagues, with friends, how has that changed?
Yeah, I remember I worked at Amazon for a few years. I remember there was a moment in time where I actually had a relationship, had someone was yelling at me during a meeting. I remember before the practice, I would have got upset. I would have felt like, man, why is this happening to me? Why is this person yelling at me? But after finding the practice, I stayed calm and I stayed composed. I tried to be as compassionate and kind as I could be. And after the meeting, people came up to me and said, wow, you handled that so great. You handled yourself so confidently. And I really felt like before that, I would never be able to do that.
Wow, that's amazing. And what have people who know you, what have they said about your changes after you started practicing Falun Dafa?
Oh, they said a lot of things. They said that I really put my heart into my work. That I really try to be a better person everywhere I am. They really seen a lot of changes in me.
That's amazing. And has practicing Falun Dafa changed your outlook on life in any way?
Absolutely. I feel like before finding the practice, I was in a kind of a dark, isolated place, and this practice has given me hope. It's helped me see a brighter, beautiful future, not just for myself, but for all the world.
Right, yeah, I think this is a common phenomenon among young people today. They feel very hopeless and that they don't really have a future. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of people right now, especially, middle-aged men my age, a lot of them feel isolated and alone like I did. In college, it's really hard for me. I felt like I was kind of isolated and and needing kind of a big environment. And this practice has given me a family. It's given me people that I can be around. It's given me a lot of great things.
And we're just going to tune in now to some words from people who've been out there at the parade and what they're thinking about it. Let's check it out.
Although I'm not Chinese, we were expats in Shanghai, China around 2009 for about 3 years. And this is a great parade. We love seeing it here in New York City. We're glad that the city is supporting the Chinese people and Falun Dafa. I think I'm saying that right. And it's just great to see everyone here. It's a beautiful practice, and we're happy that they're celebrating and getting the word out.
A lot of people, yes, is I'm very surprised to see that here in New York Street. I think if we have something to, I know, to defend, about the tradition, about our culture, is good to continue. Yeah.
And I was hanging out with my friends, and this parade caught us by surprise because we weren't expecting it. But we had the chance to enjoy it because it gave us a different feeling about New York, and the spirit of this parade, it transmitted to us something very nice. It's a good thing that they have a chance to demonstrate their feelings in here. New York is a multicultural city, and made it happen. So I'm happy for these people, and I'm happy that I had the chance to see it.
We both come from communist countries, just like Albania. Way back then, you know, about a few decades ago, we used to be very, very close friends. So we do know what China is going through. We went through that. But thank God we're in this great place, United States, that we have the chance to like present and keep our traditions alive without being prosecuted like we had back home. And I'm glad you guys are doing this. I'm glad to see that. I have great respect for the Chinese people, the country itself. You guys have a great tradition. Food as well. Me and my wife would love Chinese food, and my kids. Keep going, guys. You know, things are gonna change, and I wish for that.
This has been NTD's special live coverage of the 2024 World Falun Dafa Day Parade right here in New York City. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie Cox.
And I'm Tiffany Meyer. Stay here for more beautiful parade footage, which will continue live streaming, and we will see you shortly for more original breaking news coverage.